So what I'm doing now is I'm going to do the torque adjustments on this, and basically involves winding a piece of string around a 7-inch wheel and using a force gauge, which I have here. This should be reading nothing at this point because I got it just sitting there. But this is not, for those of you who would comment that this is not a good enough gauge, that's probably true. Since I don't do this for a living, I'm not going to invest in a $500 force gauge. I'm going to basically be checking and making slight adjustments with this gauge to see if anything is really far off. And if everything looks pretty close, then I'm just going to leave it. So right now what I'm doing is I'm doing the forward play take-up torque adjustment. So it directs you to use rubber bands to hold the little tensioners so that it actually thinks there's a tape in there, which means the capstan is running. And then just push play. And then read the torque. This is showing about 270, which is actually a touch high. So I'll probably turn it down. It should be 240 to 260. I'll aim for the 250 mark. And I'll adjust it using these, and then I'll proceed to do the other adjustments. Well, I'm back at it after having completed all the torque adjustments for the real motors. Those are done. So I'm going to continue recapping this thing. Everything is working fine. Obviously this recap and resolder all the joints is more of a preventive thing, but I'm going to continue working on it. I'm going to do some low-hanging fruit at this point. This little capstan motor drive board has looks like 3 or 4 little capacitors on there, so I'll do that one. And then this board right here, this green one, has 2 capacitors on it, and apparently that drives the fluorescent display down at the bottom for VU level, so that should be a fairly easy one to do as well. So I'll do that next. Well, this board's done. I got all the solder joints on here resoldered, caps changed, so it looks good. Got it cleaned off real nice. Look at how shiny it is now. I think they put this stuff on at the factory that's like a coating of some kind, possibly to protect the board, maybe during shipment or just during use, but it's really nasty brown stuff that gets sort of gloopy. But anyway, for those of you who are wondering how long it takes to do something like this, I think I've got probably about I'd say 40 to 50 hours already into this reel-to-reel, and I haven't even started recapping the main board or any of these major boards here. The only big board I've done so far is this one. And this took me a little over an hour to do this. There were 4 capacitors on this board, which I've changed all of them, at least 4 that needed to be changed. And then spent the rest of the time cleaning this board off and resoldering the joints on it, which should provide some longevity to this restoration. So that took about an hour just for time comparison purposes. I imagine this main board I'll be working on for days, give or take a few hours here and there. Probably part of that difficulty is going to be in the disassembly and accessing most of the components I need to. So that's where we stand with this. I'm going to put this back in and try it real quick. I'm testing it again after the capstan board rebuild. Everything is working fine, so moving on. The next thing I'm going to be working on is this card right here, which drives the fluorescent display on the front for the VU meters. There's 2 capacitors on here, so it's not going to be a lot of work. There's only one here and then one here. But I do want to resolder all the joints and clean the card as well. Hopefully this one won't take too long. Well, I've got the faceplate off, and I'm going to start working on some things on the front here. Namely, the first thing I'm going to tackle is this display board here, or the counter. I'm going to do that. It's got 3 capacitors on it. And then move on. I'm not sure if I want to start working on any of the other boards or if I want to go ahead and rebuild these tension rollers. I'm not really sure at the moment, but I will figure it out, I guess. But right now I'm working on this board. Well, here's the counter board, which is done now. I've cleaned it and resoldered it. Cleaned off all the old, whatever that was, that coating. Looks pretty good now. Caps are all replaced on it, not that there was that many. 3, I think, yep. So, just gotta, and I have also re-lubricated the transport mechanism here. You can see the new grease is not all nasty and dirty like the old stuff. Re-grease that, and I'll have to work on the lower part of the transport when I take the head block off. But right now I got that upper part at least done, so I can go ahead and put the counterboard back in where it goes and continue moving on. Just verifying that the counter is working properly. It's hard to read in the video because of all the reflections, but it looks fine in person. It's just because that little cover over it isn't on there, which diffuses the light. Just making sure it's counting. This is where the sensors are located for the counter. It's these little optical sensors here. So really it's counting left reel turns and make sure it zeroes out. Yeah, so it's alright. Well, the next thing I'm going to be working on is rebuilding these tension rollers to get rid of the gummy fluid and other things that are inside of here. So I'm going to take these apart. I'm actually going to take the switch off and rebuild it from there. So get this out of here and take a look at it. You got to do both of them. There's one on each side. That one's there and this one's over here. So I've finished rebuilding this roller, and I have not done this one yet, but I want to demonstrate the difference and why it's important on this deck. As you know, when you go to thread the tape on this thing, you push this around to the click stop, you click it in, you thread your tape just easily around it through the pinch rollers under the heads, and same thing on that side. And then when you release it, it should kind of get caught somewhere in the middle here with tape on it, and at that point the switch is disengaged on both sides and the caps then should start to turn and your deck is ready to play. Well, I want you to see the difference between these two rollers, and I will explain why it's important. So this one I just rebuilt. It is now very free. The lubrication is good. The damper works well. I can click it around to here. It clicks into the click stop properly, and watch what happens when I release it. It's very fast. You see how quick that is? It's a very nice spring action. And I'm pushing it right against the click stop. I'm not actually clicking it in. Bam. It's quick. And then if you watch the damper behind there, it comes to rest in about 2 or 3 seconds after that. Which the damper, so right here at the beginning, the damper is not resisting the movement. When I get to about here, the damper starts to resist it very slightly. Now, watch the other one. If I put it around near the click stop and let it go, look at how long it takes to get back to the home position. It sounds a little nicer, but it's not working correctly. This should be very quick. I'll just push it right against the click stop. Bam. But I do have my proper 30 degrees of motion, and the damper is resisting it. The reason this needs to happen quickly is twofold. One, this action is a little bit stronger this direction to my right, because when tape is making sudden changes, this should be able to increase the tension slightly, which gives it a little more tension on the tape that actually goes around here. versus reacting slowly as this thing seems to do, not reacting to changes in the tape tension very well. So this will react to changes in the tape tension quickly and therefore provide better tension on the heads. And the second reason is when your tape runs out, you'll be playing and all of a sudden the tape won't be holding this back anymore, and it'll quickly click to a stop and turn off the real motors right away, versus right now it takes forever to turn those off. So that's why having this quick action is important. Well, it's time to rebuild the second one. So starting by taking it off, I actually take the switch off of it so I can rebuild the thing out on the workbench in a very easy to access manner where I can hold down C-clips and things like that rather than trying to rebuild it while it's partially attached to the unit. So just got to take the switch off and then I can take it out here and rebuild it. So I've got everything put back together and I'm testing the deck as per usual. I got my wound flutter meter out again just to see what that looks like. But so far the operation of the deck is pretty good. My wound flutter set at the 0.1 setting is 0.02, and that's playback and record because I recorded this signal with the deck as well, so that's really good. And I can put it in a pause. It still jumps slightly, but it's a much better tape handling without that big loop of tape occurring here. Stop. Seems to work a lot better, so that's nice. Yeah, really good performance there. So, anyway, time to move on. I think the next step is going to be recapping the preamp board. What I'm doing now is I'm trying to figure out that problem I've been having where whenever you turn the volume controls down to nothing, there's always still some sound coming out of the right channel. And the left channel seems to actually quiet down to nothing, but the right channel always has something coming out. And it happens actually with two controls. It happens with the line output. When you turn that down to 0, whenever anything is going on, whether you're recording, playing back, or whatever, when you turn that down to 0, you still hear whatever's coming out of the right channel faintly. And then with the line input as well, when you turn that all the way down, you still hear what's coming out of the right channel slightly, and the VU meters register whenever you hear that. So I'm trying to trace that down, and I'm trying to follow the schematic on the bottom of the circuit board here and poke through it. I've got signal going in, and I'm very carefully poking through to try and figure out exactly where it's coming from and all that kind of stuff.